A big show coming up, but first, this.
Foreign governments are going to try to influence our democracy for the rest of our lives. We need to have tools to find out about that. And when you find out about a foreign government trying to influence a campaign, you need to protect the campaign, not spy on it. They did it right for Clinton. They used the counterintelligence investigation to spy on Trump. That is a double standard. That is political bias. And I'm hoping Durham is looking this.
That was Senator Lindsey Graham on this program back in August, breaking news about a document he said proved that the FBI applied a different standard of justice to Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. We learned more about this on Wednesday when President Trump formally declassified a slew of Russiagate documents before leaving office. Joining me right now are two journalists who were instrumental in exposing the Russia hoax. John Solomon is editor and chief of Just the News. Lee Smuth will be joining us in the next blog. John, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. Walk us through what was most important from your standpoint of that Russia document dump that we saw this last week as the President Trump declassified so many documents related to the made-up story of Russia collusion.
Yeah, I think when we're done, listen, there are thousands of pages of documents, so it's going to take us weeks to get through the significance. But these are to judicial integrity, to what the Pentagon Papers were to the Vietnam War. Why do I say that? It just shows an extraordinary effort by the FBI to participate in what they knew was a political dirty trick. They knew Christopher Steele's intention was to help Hillary Clinton get rid of her email scandal, distract the public from it in the last quarter of the election. They also knew that he wanted to help Great Britain because he thought Donald Trump would be bad for the U.S.-Great Britain relationship. They knew a foreigner was influencing our elections, and they allowed it to persist, not for weeks or months, but for 2.5 years. I think at the core of it, that is the big headline that these documents make. Then you can go through all the things like Senator Graham just said. The double standard is irrefutable. Hillary Clinton was being targeted by a foreign power. They were going to route money into her campaign. The FBI tried to get a FISA on the country to spy on it. James Comey's leadership said, no, we're not going to do that. And they gave her a defensive briefing, probably a good thing. They did not do the same thing for President Trump. They go get the FISA, they spy on the campaign. They never give President Trump the same defensive briefing. Two standards, one FBI. It's why people are so frustrated.
So tell me about the real bombshells in this declassification, because I know that you are breaking news this morning on Andrew McCabe. What can you tell us?
Listen, Andrew McCabe is one of the most central figures in this case. He was the deputy director until James Comey was fired. Then he became the acting FBI director. And back in 2015 and 16, I wrote a series of stories with Sarah Carter that looked at his wife running for Virginia Senate. He and his wife meet with Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a close Clinton friend and a Democrat, that they arranged some financing for McAuliffe to help McCabe's wife, and yet he never steps aside in the email investigation until the very end, and he never stepped aside in the Russia investigation, obviously, even though Hillary Clinton's evidence was what started the whole Russia case, the Steele dossier. These declassified memos, including McCabe's own notes that he took from meetings, show there was grave concern that McCabe was staying around and participating in these cases. Rod Rosenstein in 2017, May, right after Comey's fired, tries to push McCabe to step aside, saying it's just not good. It's bad optics. It's going to hurt the integrity of the FBI if you stay in charge of the Russia case, given all we know about your wife's campaign. And at the end of the day, McCabe stood there and said, I'm going to stay in there. Now, even Special Counsel Mueller, Robert Mueller, was aware of this. He said, I'm not going to get into the conflicts, but you should know, Andy McCabe, you're probably going to be a witness in my Russia investigation. McCabe still doesn't step aside. So that's stuff we did not see going on. It was in the backroom dealing.
John Durham is continuing a criminal investigation. We are going to be talking this morning about the Biden agenda. Do you expect Durham to come out with indictments, even in the face of a new administration and the Biden agenda unfolding?
Everything that I see in the activity of the investigation and everything I hear from defense lawyers and others that are familiar with what's going on is that he is building a small number of indictments. trying to get the evidence to get there. There have been some delays, and there's fights over evidence in the secret, behind closed doors, grand jury fights. But all the evidence is pointing toward him trying to bring criminal charges probably in the first quarter of this year. That's what I'm hearing. Of course, there's a new sheriff in town. When Merrick Garland gets confirmed as Attorney General, as we expect he will, he'll have a say, and maybe he'll take and put the case and set it aside. But right now, John Durham looks to be building a small number of indictments focused on the top of the FBI. That's very important, the very top of the leadership of the FBI. That's where he's looking.
Also in these documents that were declassified, we learned about Christopher Steele and a confession a year after he was fired. Tell me about that.
So important. Christopher Steele finally describes his motive in September 2017. Remember, he was fired in November for leaking to the media, November 16. They bring him back in September. He said, here are my two motives. My first motive was James Comey reopened the Clinton email case. I thought that was going to hurt Hillary Clinton's chances. I leaked to the news media to create a different storyline in the public. And secondly, I considered Donald Trump to be my main opponent, and I didn't want him to be president because he would I think he would hurt the Great Britain-U.S. relationship. Now, remember, he's a foreigner. He's a British former MI6 agent. This is the clearest evidence that a foreigner intervened in an election. We started the Russia collusion investigation thinking Donald Trump and Russia were colluding together, and we ended it knowing that Hillary Clinton's hand-picked MI6 investigator intervened in our election because he didn't like Donald Trump and he wanted to help Hillary Clinton. What a role reversal.
Unbelievable. All right.